Okay, ready for the next one? Today on the Precon Chop Shop, we're taking a look at Enduring Enchantments, one of the Precon decks from the Commander Masters set. As always, the goal of these Chop Shop videos is to talk about the new cards and the valuable reprints in the Precon to see whether it's best to buy the Precon as a whole to upgrade and play, or take it apart for singles, or if you should just get another Precon instead if you're on a tight budget like I am and can't afford to buy every product that Wizards puts out. So let's start with the face commander. Anakthea, Hand of Erebos is a 4/4 legendary enchantment creature demigod with menace for 2 white, black, green. It says other enchantment creatures you control have menace. Whenever Anakthea ETBs or attacks, exile up to 1 target non-aura enchantment card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 3/3 black zombie creature token in addition to its other types. Now, I fell in love with this commander when I first saw it months ago, and even if I'm not particularly interested in the Precon, I might pick this up as a single to build that zombie enchantment deck. The secondary commander is Narcy, Fable Singer, a 3/3 legendary human bard with lifelink for 1 white, black, green. It says whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, draw a card. It also says whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that saga's mana value. It's really too bad that there are only 7 sagas in the Precon. But if you like sagas in Abzan, then this is clearly a great commander for that deck. When a saga does its last thing and you have to sacrifice it, you get to draw a card to replace it. As of right now, there are 55 sagas in total that can go into this deck with very different effects. As a single, this is going to be a great pickup for that saga deck because it's going to wind up being swapped out for something else if Anakthea is the commander of an enchantment deck. Next are the rest of the new cards in the Precon. Battle at the Hell Vault is a saga for 4 white, white. Chapter 1 and 2 say for each player, exile up to 1 target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until Battle at the Hell Vault leaves the battlefield. Chapter 3 says create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about this one as a single, but it's pretty okay in the Precon. You temporarily remove 6 permanents and then get a beefy creature after 3 turns for 6 mana. Maybe great in Blink decks? I don't know. I doubt this will be a popular single. Boon of the Spirit Realm is an enchantment for 3 white, white that says, whenever it or another enchantment ETBs under your control, put a blessing counter on Boon of the Spirit Realm. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each blessing counter on Boon of the Spirit Realm. I really like effects like these, but they're never very popular. This is, of course, most effective in enchantress decks that looks to make tokens as their main combat creatures with non-token creatures, serving to boost and support the enchantment strategy rather than attacking themselves. It's a great single for that purpose, and only that purpose, I think. Its specific use will limit its popularity. Cacophony Unleashed is an enchantment for 5 black, black that says, when it ETBs, if you cast it, destroy all non-enchantment creatures. Whenever it or another enchantment ETBs under your control, until the end of turn, Cacophony Unleashed becomes a legendary 6/6 Nightmare God creature with menace and death touch. It's still an enchantment. Now, this one sounds great, but I'm not so sure. You get a board wipe for 7 mana, and if you're doing the enchantment creature thing, it's going to be one-sided. It comes down as an enchantment and becomes a creature, but you can't swing with it that turn, which isn't the end of the world, but chances are high that this thing won't last to the next round, especially if you just wiped the board. I don't think this is going to be a very popular single. Composer of the Spring is a completely different story. It's a 1/3 Satyr Bard for 1 and a green that says, whenever an enchantment ETBs under your control, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 6 or more enchantments, instead you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Now this is an absolute instant staple in enchantment decks. It's going to let you ramp to cast more enchantments, and since you often have a grip of cards, due to the synergies of card draw caused by enchantment ETB effects, being able to put those extra lands onto the field is a very big deal. So far, this is going to be the strongest and priciest single in the Precon. Demon of Fate's Design is a 6/6 enchantment creature demon with flying and trample for 4 black, black. It says once during each of your turns, you may cast an enchantment spell by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Then you can pay 2 and a black and sack another enchantment to give Demon of Fate's design +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed enchantment's mana value. Now I think this card is good enough with the first ability, and chances are very limited as to when you'll use the second ability. It's a beefy, high-cost evasive creature that lets you use life to cast enchantments for 6 mana. I'm actually kind of on the fence on this one. I don't think it'll be popular, but it's going to be great in both enchantment and demon decks. Ghoulish Impetus is an aura for 2 and a black that says, enchanted creature gets +1/+1, has death touch, and is goaded. Then it says, when enchanted creature dies, return Ghoulish Impetus to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. I love this card, and will absolutely pick one up for my Gen deck. It's cheap enough to be effective on even small creatures thanks to Death Touch, and the Goad will help deal with bigger creatures, sending them at your opponents instead of your face. Then, when the creature is inevitably removed, you can put the aura on a new creature. Now, this isn't a May ability, so if there's no creature on the field, or even worse, only your commander is on the field, this becomes less desirable, but I still think it'll be great fun. It's pretty niche, so it probably won't be that popular, especially when compared to Composer of Spring. Nyxborn Behemoth is a 10/10 enchantment creature beast with trample for 10 green that says, this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of non-creature enchantments you control. Then you can pay 1 and a green and sack another enchantment to give Nyxborn Behemoth indestructible until end of turn. This is Metalwork Colossus, but better because everything is better in green. At the minimum, this can cost 2 green, and we know how effective those types of cards can be. But since it's limited to Enchantress decks, this will also be limited in its popularity. It's a great single just for those decks, and not really anywhere else. Ondu Spirit Dancer is a 3/3 core cleric for 4 and a white that says whenever an enchantment ETBs under your control, you may create a token that's a copy of it. Do this only once each turn. This is another Enchantress staple and a great include for Gen. You get 2 enchantments for the price of 1, and there are a lot of enchantments that can benefit greatly from having multiple copies on the field. They also don't have to be cast and they don't have to be non-tokens, so if you just plop the card on the field, you get a token. If you can make a copy of the card somehow and make a new token, you get another token. Anointed Procession with this on the field is going to be hilarious. I really think that this will be in everyone's shopping cart right next to Composer of Spring. Now we can move on to the valuable reprints in the Precon. Dryad of Ilsean Grove and Starfield of Nyx are the big ones of the Precon, where the singles of both of these are around $15 to $20 each. Grasp of Fate is next at about $8, then there are a bunch at around $5. Cunning Rhetoric, Mirari's Wake, Citizen Champion, and Veraduran Enchantress. Then the rest of the singles are unfortunately under $3. And take special note that all of the lands in this deck are under $1. So I'll be avoiding this Precon and picking up Anixia as a single, as I've mentioned before. And if they manage to be cheap, I'll be snagging Ghoulish Impetus and Ondu Spirit Dancer for my Gen deck, since they help solve his biggest problem. If you don't have an Enchantress deck and want one, this one is actually a pretty good buy, since it does have a lot of the staples needed for an Enchantress deck. But see if you can get it really cheap rather than at full price if you can avoid it. Just looking at it, I also think that the deck looks to work pretty well, and your priciest upgrades are going into the mana base, just like they do with the Sliver deck, so take that into consideration when you're thinking about picking this one up. But that's about it for this one. Let me know what you think of Enduring Enchantments and whether you'll be picking up the Precon as a whole, or just a few singles like I will be in the comments below. There are 2 more Precons to talk about, so keep an eye out for those in the near future. But in the meantime, like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.